Welcome to the Plant-Based Wellness Forum. I'm your host, Steve Gavrlos, and we are here recording live at the Walkerville Brewery in the historic neighborhood of Old Walkerville in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. My guest today is a medical doctor who specializes in pediatrics, and he also uses plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine to help his patients lead a longer, happier, and healthier life. I'd like to welcome Dr. Rikin Patel. Hi, Rikin, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me here today. Really appreciate it.
I'm so happy you're here, coming to our humble city in this historic section of Windsor. I know you haven't even been here 24 hours yet, but I hope you've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been really nice to see how Windsor has evolved over the years. I used to come here a lot as a child, going through the border on my way to see family in Chicago. And it's really grown and changed a lot. And I appreciate the invite. And, just first off, wanted to appreciate everything you're doing with this podcast, what you're doing to educate the public. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for saying that. You're actually my first health professional, first medical doctor, so I'm really blessed to have you here today for us to have this great discussion.
Happy to be here.
First, before we get into it though, how's your summer been so far? Have you been enjoying yourself? You had a chance to take some time off during the summer?
Yeah, summer's been really good. We recently got back from Europe. I was in Croatia and Vienna for a couple of weeks.
Vienna, Austria?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a great trip. One of our friends, they own the first plant-based hotel in Europe. And now it's in the Alps of Austria.
Wow.
And it was they invite some friends and family every year, and we were really fortunate to
That's
be
fantastic.
invited. But it was an amazing trip.
That's
really great time to relax. You're out in nature, good food, good company. Really a great time to unplug and really recover and plan for exciting things coming up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've been to Austria, but I've never been to Croatia. Did you have a chance to swim on the Adriatic?
Yes, in Croatia we did. We did go on a tour that took us out, and the water was crystal clear blue. It was beautiful water.
It's amazing. The salt water just helps you feel invigorated, helps your skin and everything, the vitamin D. And obviously you did a lot of forest bathing since you were in the base of the Alps. So that's awesome. Before we get started here today, I just wanted to set up the game plan.
Sure.
I think usually you probably give a lecture, whether it's to medical colleagues or parents for their children, or even aspiring medical students. So today, instead of having a lecture, obviously we're having this conversation, and we're gonna talk about not only your craft, we're also gonna talk about your untold story.
Okay.
I think it's very important to do that because everyone has an untold story, and it's important to see the person behind the craft, because it's one thing to tell people about your knowledge and experience and all that stuff, and that's vitally important. But I think when you go to the source of who is this person, where did they come from, and what brought them here to this moment, to this day, I think it's a story that's important to let out. There's two reasons why you want to do that. We have this opportunity here to record this podcast. You get a chance, number one, to reflect on your past, the good and the bad, the experiences that you've had. I think it's very therapeutic for the individual. And number two, it's also very important for our viewers out there to know, who is Dr. Rikin Patel? How did he get here, right? And so we want to do your untold story, let's say for the first half, and we're going to tie that into your craft of being a pediatrician, specializing in lifestyle medicine and plant-based nutrition.
Great.
Sound good?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So again, I know you're used to usually giving lectures, but today we're just going to have a discussion. I just want you to feel comfortable. So let's just pretend we're just two guys sitting in a bar having a conversation. That shouldn't be too difficult since we're in a bar. So the important thing is, Rikin, I want you to get as much information as you want to get out to the viewers. I want to start off by talking about your early years. So tell us about your early years, your family, your ethnic background, and also what life lessons did you learn during that time that shaped your future?
Myself, I grew up in Waterloo, Ontario. I was born in Cambridge.
Okay.
And my dad, he really, encapsulates hard work, dedication. He came here having studied in the UK. And I'll tell you more about him later. And had really humble beginnings, and really, just was very responsible, hardworking, and provided for us, set a good example, gave us all the opportunities we wanted to be successful, to maximize our potential. And my mom, she was really, again, like many moms are, just magicians who are able to multitask and balance so many things. She was taking care of the house, dropping us and picking us up from all our activities, cooking meals, helping my dad with the family business. And so really is the kind of the epitome of just sacrifice and just care and love. And so those are really two things that really shape my early childhood years. And I come from a background from the west part of India, so Gujarat. Most people have heard the name Patel.
Yeah.
I often say Patel is in west part of India. It's like the Smith of Gujarat. And so we speak, I grew up learning Gujarati as a kid, went to school on Saturdays to our language classes to learn, have that community. And so a lot of my early childhood memories were formed on the weekends with my community friends, and they were really memorable ones. But yeah, that's a little bit about my early childhood years.
What are your parents' names?
My dad's name is Kiran, and my mom's name is Roma.
Roma?
Roma.
Very nice names. I got a chance to meet your parents up at the Plant-Based Lifestyle Medicine Conference a couple months ago now. Fantastic people. As you know, I had a couple conversations with your dad on Zoom. So, it's really great. How about siblings? You have siblings?
Yeah, I have a sister. So I have a younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
And we have always had a really close relationship growing up and until now. It's really nice to have a sibling to grow up with. You feel like it's a tag team. To approach your parents, to support each other. And yeah, she's had a huge impact on my life, and we're very close till now.
Excellent. And her name is?
Rima.
Rima. And what does Rima do?
So Rima, she does a lot of creative things. Right now, she has her own consulting company, and it focuses on providing consultation for strategy for pharma companies. So she helps specifically with strategy for pharmaceutical companies. And she also does executive coaching for executives and VPs in the different companies. So she's both a coach and a consultant as well. And she does that through her company called One Solution.
Very good, very good. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, because we're talking about your early life, but you're married. You've been married how many years now?
Now it's just 2.5 years.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
Still a newlywed.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we met in the middle of, actually 5 years ago, just coming up. And it was amazing to meet Palak. And we quickly knew that this was a lifelong match. And because of COVID, there were just different hoops to jump through about the formalities. But yeah, it was great. While COVID oftentimes, because of the distancing, kind of got in the way of families coming together, we really had the opportunity to build a relationship and go deeper. So it was really powerful.
Well, having seen you and Palak together, I think you're a great match. You complement each other, and you also work together, right? Which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any kids?
No kids yet,
Not yet.
but we're definitely in the family planning stage.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that
Good
next
luck.
chapter in
And
our life.
obviously as a pediatrician, you want to have some children and get to practice your own of what you're teaching everybody else.
Yeah.
So that'd be a great opportunity. Next, tell me about your elementary and high school experiences, and what did you learn during those years that shaped your future?
I was a pretty mischievous kid, and I would always choose play over, reading or studying. So it was really like my parents had to rein me in to get me to do work. And I remember school never came naturally to me,
Right.
let's put it that way. And so, but I remember in grade 5, we had a test. And when I studied really hard for that test. And when I finished the test, I knew I had done well, but I didn't know how it went. And I remember right before we were getting our marks for that test, I went to the bathroom because I was kind of nervous about what I was going to get. And then when I came back in, everybody was stood up and was clapping because I was the only person on that test that aced it.
Wow.
And it really, I remember that so clearly because it kind of ignited something in me where I had the confidence in myself that I could do well if I studied hard. And so it was just a very memorable impression in grade school. You know, in high school, I was really fortunate that I went to a high school that had a pond on the campus of the school. So we were really exposed to outdoor activities. During gym, we would get to go canoeing and kayaking.
Wow.
So I was really
I've never heard of that at a high school. That's very unique.
And our high school also had a course called outdoor education, where the part of the whole course was going on trips, so canoe trips, kayak trips, rock climbing, and we would have to journal about our experiences. This was the nature of that course. And so it was really great. I think it set some real deep impressions about connecting to nature, nature being a real outlet for a way to relax, have fun, recover, and connect with ourselves. So those are some really memorable experiences. In addition to all the sports that I played, I was a real sports buff in high school. I played tennis quite seriously. I also played on our high school team. And when you play one racket sports, it translates to the other. So that let me play badminton for my high school. And I cross-country skied for our varsity team. And then I also, my really big activity, which I still do to this day, is martial arts, Kung Fu. And so athletics were a really big part of my younger years. And I really feel set such a powerful foundation because from sport, we have so much to learn about life. You know, we learn the aspect of teamwork. I really learned hard work, discipline, trying to practice the same thing multiple times to kind of refine and improve. You have to deal with failure and losing because you're not winning every time. And I think that's a really important life lesson to learn through sport and competition. And really just the opportunity to maximize your potential, right? You really have, you take responsibility and you work hard. And I think the values that you get, such as the strong work ethic, the discipline, the patience to develop a craft, I think that has bled into every aspect of my life that I'm really grateful for. And I really got out of my time in my youth years playing sports.
Well, that's great. A great way to have a foundation for your future, because right now in today's world, you see a lot of children, as you know, that are more sedentary and they don't get involved with sports and with nature. I remember the first time my daughter, they bought the Wii, and I was also used to skiing a few times. And when she said, "Hey, Dad, let's play this Wii and go skiing," so I was on it. I'm like, "Hey, this is not doing the trick for me, right?" And that's a big problem, I think, with the environment we live in today, whereas kids are not exposed to daily exercises and getting out in nature. So that's amazing that I've never heard of a high school like that where you had a whole lake or pond out there
we just
to help you connect.
We just happened to be situated in the countryside where that was there.
Okay.
So it's because of the location of the school that we had lots, like the school was over 27 acres.
Wow, and that's in Cambridge?
Right outside of Guelph.
What's the name of the?
St. John's Kilmarnock.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
That was my grade school, elementary, and high school. But I also, just like every other kid today, did have more than my fair share of screen time. Loved video games. Was a pro at Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart.
Okay, yes.
Loved it. Still love it now. So I think that outside of all those experiences, there was still I still derived a lot of fun from doing the activities that are that all the other kids love to do.
Well, I think it's a good balance to have. As long as you don't go extreme on the one end of technology, you can still incorporate it into your lifestyle, right? So great. You went to grade school. You had inspiration because you had the best mark. It made you realize that, hey, I have a lot of potential. And you went to high school with this great experience that you had. So all that stuff, like what led you to becoming a physician and also to pursue a career in pediatrics?
Medicine has definitely been part of our family. My dad, in fact, he had got into medical school. He grew up in Africa, but at that time when he got in, they were all in Uganda.
Okay.
They were all pushed out by the leader at that time. So my grandparents went back to India, and all of my dad and his siblings went to the UK to pursue their studies.
Okay.
And so because of that transition, he lost his spot there and ended up pursuing pharmacy when he got to the UK.
I see.
And so we come from a family of other healthcare practitioners, and I remember, because my dad's a pharmacist, my earlier years was definitely spent helping him out at the pharmacy. I used to stand on a stool and I could just peer over like the counter. And, you know, pretty much as soon as I could, I was helping my dad in the dispensary, count medications, helping at the cash register. And so I was definitely immersed in that healthcare environment, which definitely set an impression. And my dad always encouraged me to think about medicine as a career, right? And so those seeds were definitely implanted. And I think then over the years, it just became, is this something that I want to do? And I was always drawn to being around kids. Even when I was older, I loved being around kids of all ages, had a natural affinity. I still even think now we're all just older, evolved kids.
Big kids.
Yeah, we're big kids. And so that population really, really interested me. Honestly, I thought there was the impact that we can have as physicians is tremendous. So the combination of my interest in health, my own health too. I always took interest in my own health, and having that aspect of good nutrition and sport when I was young also helped me have good lifestyle habits from when I was younger, and that also, I think, informed my interest in health, in the body, in physiology, in how we can live healthier lives. So I think I wanted to take my interest, and I thought medicine was also a natural fit for my interest in helping others. So that's kind of how the interest started and what led me to a career in medicine. I would say that it's it's a long road to go through, and so I was really lucky that in university I was surrounded by friends. I lived in a house where out of 7 of us, 6 of us became doctors.
Oh wow!
So it was really a container of good, a positive environment for all of us, being on the same page, which also meant that we came with a certain mindset. We were able to cut certain things out of our life, that we needed to really make some sacrifices to get there. And it was really having that supportive environment that also helped and keeps you motivated. I think we all need support. We all need a pick-me-up. We all need help from others to keep our vision and our dreams alive. And that was really helpful in my university years when there is, everyone's striving for it, but you still need a closer group of people that are helping each other out. So those are some things that are coming to me. I think, that's how I ended up in medical school. And it was, it was a long journey. I went to McMaster for undergrad.
Okay.
And I was the inaugural first year of the health sciences program at McMaster, which is a well-known program now, but at that time was kind of in its budding youth, and it was an amazing program. But not only just from the courses it provided, but from the people that I met. I still have my friends from that program 25 years later now. And it provided a great foundation, and it really gave me the tools and the, kind of cultivated the interest that I had. But, because it was med school now, and even then was competitive, there were definitely bumps along the way.
Yeah.
You could say my forte was never writing standardized tests. And so that's really what held me back. And so I would write the standardized test, the MCAT, to get into medical school. First time I did it was in my second year. Was well off the mark from needing the marks to get in. And that was okay because I had a couple more years left. And then after I did my third year, a lot of my friends who I was going through school with, they had gotten in. And so I was, now, studying on my own, and did it that second time. Still didn't get the grades that I needed. So, but there was a school, McMaster didn't require the MCAT at that time.
That's
so
right.
I applied, I got an interview, and I really felt confident that if I could get an interview, I could, show the committee that I was really enthusiastic because I had good grades, great CV, did a lot of community work, advocacy, athletics. I had a really well-rounded CV. And so I still remember everyone in medical school knows, after my interview, everyone knows that in med school, when it comes to admission time, there's two envelopes. There's the small envelope and the big envelope. And so as you can imagine, the big envelope is the envelope saying that you got in, congratulations. And the small envelope is the envelope saying, sorry, unfortunately.
Try again.
And so I remember that day when I was waiting for that mail, because the day it's coming.
Right.
Everyone knows this. Everyone knows this.
Now,
day.
there was no email back then, was there?
No.
So you just
there was email. There was email, but for this, back in 2000,
had to be a formal delivery.
It was a letter.
2004?
It was a 2004.
Okay, so tell me about when you got that envelope.
Yeah. So I still remember that day. It was overcast. I was wearing khakis and a green shirt.
Okay.
I remember what I was doing right before. We were waiting for the mail to come in. And I remember peering through the mailbox was that envelope. It was an envelope. And to my surprise, it was the small envelope. And I thought, okay, maybe, and we already know what the small envelope means, but I thought, okay, maybe it's just I got waitlisted.
Okay.
And when I opened the envelope, the first line is, we regret to inform you that you were unsuccessful in your application to the MD program at McMaster.
Oh.
And so I got turned down, I got rejected.
Ah.
And I thought to myself, something must be, there must be a mistake here. And I was so determined to figure out what had went wrong. With my sister, we drove from Waterloo, I drove to Hamilton to try to talk to somebody, getting some type of feedback on what had happened, because I just couldn't believe it. Everything in the interview I felt had gone my way. I felt good about everything, everything else in my application. I even had my own friends who had gotten into medical school. They were on the interview committee that day I interviewed. So people I knew were there, and I really thought I had the winds in my sails. And so to get this letter was really surprising, and I went to the school and I just got wall after wall. No one was willing to talk to me. No one was willing to give me any more information. And I remember that drive home was a real tough one because it was just starting to sink in. And the only way I can really describe it, because I remember the feeling till then, I really felt that something within my, in my abdomen, something had just kind of been pulled out, and I had felt this emptiness inside. And it was such a palpable feeling. It's like, if you feel like a stable footing from the ground, and it was as though the ground had just fell from under me, and I was just in this free fall because I had no backup plan. I was really, really feeling confident about my chances of getting in. So it was as they say in life, a reversal. A reversal where you're expecting one thing and you get completely the opposite. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I met with a mentor of mine because I had no backup plan. So I was trying to find maybe a master's program to do. And I met with a mentor of mine a professor of mine from university. He taught us health policy and finance. And he had traveled to different schools around the world. And he told me about a health policy and finance program in the UK that he said I should look into.
Okay.
And so I started looking into it, and I saw that they were still accepting applications. Now we're already at the end of May. And so by the time, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try since they're still accepting applications. My chances of getting in are quite small. And these were really prominent schools. And so I applied in June, and then in August, to my surprise, the Health Policy, Finance and Planning program at the London School of Economics and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine it said, congratulations, you've been accepted into the master's program. It was a 1-year program.
Right.
And I was really shocked. I was, on one side, I was excited because there was this opportunity, because I had no other opportunity going for me at that time. So I was really excited that, okay, I have something. But then I was also nervous because I had been on this track for medical school, and I thought, what if I go there and, life plans change? And,
Right.
And so, but I really, it was a moment in life where I would say that I didn't know where the destination was, but it was an open door, and I took the chance and I walked through that door. And that was definitely one of the best decisions of my life, because it was a life-changing year. I got to travel parts of the world I would have never seen otherwise. I made friends from all different parts of the world. We had, in our class of 40-some people, we had people from over like 25, 30 countries.
Wow.
So met people from all over the world, still have friends, close friends to that day from that program. I got to experience new cultures. I got to learn about, health policy, which has really informed now my practice as a physician, having a macro view of a healthcare system, and how the physician now is a front line, and kind of what happens in that gap between the back-end policymakers and the front-end providers. And I really had a transfer. It was totally a transforming year of my life. And so, yeah, definitely a lesson that I learned now looking back was that, sometimes as the famous saying goes by Steve Jobs, we can never connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking back.
I agree with that.
And I really, really say that sometimes we don't have the course is never going to be as we planned. It may be around or in circles. But as long as we feel like we're progressing, we get opportunities that we may not even know what might happen as a result. But walking through those doors, I will say that when certain doors close, other doors open. And if we can stay open and curious and, again, take a risk. I feel like life is all about taking calculated risks. And if we take them with support and with courage, that so much in life awaits us, and there's so many lessons to be learned and life experiences to be had for a richer, joyful life. And I'm so happy that I took that chance. And then, so from there, I also applied to med school again. I interviewed at my master, and for the 3rd year in a row, I interviewed and I didn't get in.
At McMaster, each time you applied for McMaster?
Yeah. And so I then finally got the opportunity to go to medical school, St. George's University in Grenada. That opportunity opened up, and so I went.
How was the process getting into St. George's?
Yeah, so I ended up, I was really lucky that I was fortunately maybe a stronger candidate, so they gave me a scholarship. I ended up interviewing for the school while I was in the UK studying. And again, a new opportunity that I didn't anticipate, but I thought, okay, all the doors are closed and this is the one door that opened. So life kind of works like that, where many doors close and one door opens, so you keep going through that open door and see where it takes you. And so I ended up there, not still with uncertain, but again, it was the craft and the profession that I wanted to pursue. So I went in with open arms to embrace it. And so I ended up in Grenada for 2 years. And again, also the time of my life, in the sense I made such good friends that I have to this day, such close friends. Again, meeting new people, new cultures, having gotten to explore the West Indies, meeting the Caribbean people, the culture there, such warm, friendly people, and learning about how health conditions, chronic diseases impact different cultures to a certain degree, learning that. And I remember probably one of the biggest life skills I took away is that I learned how to scuba dive when I was out on the island. And I still do it to this day. I love it. It's such a great way to, 70% of our earth is water, and to connect with nature underwater is such a profound thing. And I'm so happy that I took it up, and I learned. It was what I did when most of my friends were out partying, because that was never my thing. I would spend the early mornings on the weekends learning to dive and diving.
That's amazing.
So yeah, those were some of my years, my education years. And then from Grenada, I ended up finishing medical school in New York. Our school had connections and affiliations with hospitals across the US and in the UK. I had a specific inclination to go to New York, one, because it was also fairly close to home where I could still see my family. And I was really happy because when I was, it provided me I had already had through other friends. I had a community where I had some friends already in New York, so that was also a reason for going there.
Excellent.
And it was a time of my life again, to opportunity to live in New York. I wouldn't necessarily choose to live there on an ongoing basis because it's a really busy city. It's kind of survival of the fittest. But again, in terms of opportunity, experiencing culture, experiencing that kind of glittery life, to be there as a student, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But I chose definitely a different lifestyle while I was there. And so I was really happy that I had a group of friends that helped build my practice of meditation yoga, because I got really interested in that when I was in the UK. And it was really nice to kind of cultivate that. I learned so much from my friends in New York. And then again, I tried to come back to Canada for residency. Again, got the opportunity in the first round to match for pediatrics. I was really excited about that. But unfortunately, as you know, coming back into Canada, it is definitely more competitive. And so that first round, I didn't end up getting in to matching anywhere in Canada. So in the second round, there's a few spots left for pediatrics. And so then I ended up interviewing. I interviewed at two schools, Saskatchewan and Newfoundland. And I was really super fortunate that I remember the program director ended up telling me after 200 people were applying for this one spot that we had for residency, and I was, the fortunate one to receive it.
You were the guy, just like back in grade 5.
So, and I guess because of my challenges and the struggles and the perseverance, I really took the opportunity seriously. I didn't want to take it for granted. And I really, embraced it. And again, such an amazing opportunity to, one, be back in Canada to pursue my residency, but also, again, travel, learn from different new people, the culture of people in Newfoundland, the East Coast, got to explore new parts of Canada that I wouldn't have ever, and then also a chance to learn pediatrics and develop my craft. And so it was, again, 4 years of my life that I'm super grateful for, never forget, and still, still remember to this day. There was a time where I was working there after my first year into practice, and now I still cherish the friendships and mentors that I had from there, and look forward to going back. So yeah, that's a little bit about education before coming back from, after finishing residency. Then I ended up locuming all across Newfoundland. I worked in Goose Bay, in Corner Brook.
I mean, what I gathered from you is that you got over the fear of the unknown at the beginning, because everybody can have the fear of the unknown, but you had your belief, in, like you said, when one door closes, another one opens, and you had your belief in life. You had your belief in, good opportunities will come your way if you keep persevering. So it's an amazing journey you've had up until that point. Let me ask you, so in Grenada, was it a 2-year, you spent 2 years there? Or?
2 years there,
And then 2 in New York?
2 in New York.
And another 4 years as specializing as a pediatrician in Newfoundland?
Yes.
So you went a total of 8 years, and then did you have to do something after the 4 years pediatrics, a couple years of residency?
So then after that, after my 4 years, I initially wanted to, I was pursuing a fellowship, so an extra year of training in palliative care, in pediatric palliative care.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I went to Ottawa to do that.
After Newfoundland, you went 1 year to Ottawa, University of Ottawa?
I went to University of Ottawa. I was there for a year. And so for a variety of reasons that we can share later, but I didn't end up finishing that year because of my health.
Right.
And so I still finished, I still lived in Ottawa for the year, but I didn't finish that program. And then after I started practicing general pediatrics.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So you didn't finish on, but you were there for the year, and then the year after you started pediatrics?
Yeah, I started practicing.
What's required to get your license as a pediatrician? What do you have to do? Certain exams?
Yeah,
Besides licensure?
So you go through, when you are going through medical school,
Yeah.
you have the licensing exam to write to complete medical school and start residency.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one licensing exam. And then when you're in residency, there's a second licensing exam, and it's a practical, or an OSCE, we call it, where it's more of a practical exam where you're talking to standardized patients and you're tested for clinical knowledge.
I see.
And more clinical
You
skills.
have a panel that's observing your interaction with the
Exactly.
patients?
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
It's a room, there's one person observing,
Okay.
and you go through different scenarios. So that's the second part of the licensing exam. And so that gets you through being a qualified physician in Canada. And then after you go through your residency program, there is a specialty exam that's delivered by the Royal College. And you take that exam to then be certified as a specialist in your chosen field.
Right.
For family doctors, there's a College of Family Physicians, and they do their exams to be certified as family physicians. So there's that major exam that you write at the end of your 4 years, which is quite also a big exam. That's both a 2-day exam of a written exam, and then another third day of a OSCE, or a practical clinical exam as well. So after that, then you're board certified in your chosen field. So mine was pediatrics. And then while I was studying for that, I also took the opportunity to do the certification board exam for the United States. So I can also.
So you're licensed in both countries?
Yeah, I have a license.
So you
to
have dual
practice in the US.
licensure as a pediatrician.
Yeah.
I mean that's a lot of hard work and dedication. You went 4 years plus another 4 plus. How long was your fellowship? You said
Fellowship was a year.
it was a year, and then after that you have to write a 2-day exam.
Yeah, so that's at the end of residency there's a 2-day written exam, and then there's a 1-day oral exam.
Okay, wow. So I was going to ask you, navigating from your transition from a medical student to a resident, and finally getting licensed and practicing as a pediatric physician. How was that transition? I know you kind of touched about it, but how was the transition part? How did you feel during that time? And
I can see now that the only sure thing that's happening to all of us in life is change and transition. So change and transition is happening to all of us in different areas of our life, personal, professional.
yeah,
And I will say that I was really fortunate and blessed that my transitions from going from undergrad to med school, and med school to residency, and residency to fellowship, and fellowship to being a staff, it was marked by one thread. And that thread was having really having good supports and good mentorship. I really see this as a life principle, a silver bullet that can really change the direction of our life if we have good mentors to help us navigate transitions in our life.
well, let's talk about that right now. Actually, obviously your parents were big influences on your life, but is there any other people who mentored you and guided you along the way?
Yeah, so I see mentors going back to when I was, I had mentors in undergrad, both in my program, our dean, as well as I was working in the career center at McMaster. So I was one of the people who worked in the career center, helped other students, whether it be resume building. And so the career guidance counselors were also really amazing to help me, in my pursuit of medical school. They were really instrumental. And then when I got to London, I remember such an impactful experience. I met a group of friends who were practicing yoga and meditation. They invited me to a talk that was being given at the London School of Economics through their club, and I ended up walking in there, and there was just a room of maybe few exec people, one other person, myself, and the person who was speaking. And that person who was speaking he was such a prolific speaker and is a mentor of mine still to this day. He has this ability to take ancient wisdom and make it relevant for our modern day. And to this day, we're talking, exchanging ideas, but has helped me at such crucial times in my life throughout. And so, again, that's a mentor who's stayed all along the way in the last 20 years.
Is he somebody who's a Shaolin master? Or?
No, that's not him. My mentor from the UK, his name is Ed Anoba.
Okay.
I encourage everyone to look him up on Instagram, and he does a lot of corporate. He works for JP Morgan, and he does a lot of corporate discussions on how we can on personal growth, self-development, and how we take ancient wisdom and we make it modern for our day-to-day life. So he's been a powerful mentor in my life. And then I had when I was in residency, it definitely takes a village, I say, to make a doctor. And residency is a time where the learning curve is really steep. There's a lot of responsibility. And I remember there were times where I wasn't hitting the mark, and I had two really key people at that time, Dr. Shaw, Dr. Akhtar, who really supported me in incredible ways to help me during my residency. And I still remember them fondly, try to stay in touch with them. It's been a while, but have so much love and respect for them.
Well, that's the thing when we go, sorry to interrupt you, when we go through these experiences in our life, what remains is these relationships, like you're talking about, these people even from back in university and everything, and the relationships are what lasts, and they make you the person that you are as well.
Yeah. And
the community.
Yeah, and so similarly in Ottawa, I also, again, had a couple of doctors that really, helped me, supported me. And then that year when I was in Ottawa, something that I mentioned happened is that I went through a really difficult time where I burnt out. And also a really pivotal time in my life, because I always had tremendous energy. I always thought I was balanced, but I can definitely say that there's times in life where no matter how well we're trying to balance our life and for all the resources we have, sometimes life stress really bears down on us. Sometimes there's being so much asked of us, and it can overwhelm our ability to, we may not have the ability to match the pressure. And so that happened to me, and so I remember I had to take time off my residency program. And it was a real time that helped, that I had to rebuild myself. And I remember at that time I had a life coach at that time who really helped look at kind of my life from a macro view. And and that's one of my interests now, is even helping physicians. This idea of building resilience, preventing burnout, because of my experience and how I had to build myself up. I remember him saying to me at the time, he says, the body is like a computer. And he says, for yourself, he says, your computer has completely crashed. And so we need a complete new motherboard in your computer, the body, to kind of, to approach life.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah, it was really powerful at the time. I still remember it to this day. And I still remember that was a time of rebuild where I had a lot of good things in my life, but it became about self-reflection, creating certain boundaries, giving more time to lifestyle practices. And again, I remember at that time, the system of medicine, it can be quite grueling. There's a lot asked of us as physicians, and I really learned at that time that we, as physicians, are responsible for setting our own boundaries to take what we need to be able to still sustain ourselves and grow, because the system will continue to pull from us. And so we have to draw the line and say, hey, we need a certain amount to keep ourselves afloat, because we're no good to anyone if we're, put your own oxygen mask on first before you put on the person besides you. And that also applies to us as healthcare providers. So it's particularly an interest of mine now to reach out to support fellow physicians and allied health professionals and my nursing colleagues as well, to look out for each other because of the experience that I went through. So it was a really formative time in my life. and one that I see that we, we have to take time out for ourselves. It's so important. Rest, recovery, rejuvenation, to build resilience. It has to be carved out as a priority. Otherwise, it's just so easy to be on that hamster wheel, and everyone can relate to that feeling of go, go, go.
Yeah.
But to get off takes some conscious thought, planning, and reflection.
Yeah, I agree with you that the self-reflection is very important because it can just eat away at you. You could have a good foundation, but then once you get to the point where, like you said, so much is being asked of you, then you lose that balance. And so I think it was a great experience that you went through because now you're able to help other colleagues as well. My former family doctor retired a year ago. He was in his mid-50s and he retired. And he told me how much burnout there is in family physicians, right? He looked at it and he said, I don't want to be in that situation where maybe their life is shortened or their health is shortened. And so I said to him, I really agree with what you're doing. It may not be, ideal for these patients because they're used to you and, you give great service, but at least for yourself, I think it's very good. You have to know, like you said, when to draw the line. If you've given 20, 30 years of service, there's no reason to continue, to burn yourself out and then you can't even come back again.
Yeah.
So you got to look at your health first.
Yeah, there's our professional commitments that we have to society and our patients. But behind every healthcare provider, there's a person who has a personal life, relationships, their own health that they have to maintain.
Of course.
And, we're at a real tipping point right now where the healthcare system's really struggling because so many of our frontline workers are having to pull out because of deteriorating health.
Yeah.
And so it's a real, I would say, crisis that really requires a lot of focus and a shift in the healthcare system.
How many physicians are needed right now? You were mentioning before when we were speaking. What is the shortage of physicians, like the extent of the shortage?
I don't know all the numbers, but I do know that right now, at least in the province of Ontario, there are 2 million people, 2 million people in Ontario without a family doctor.
Unreal.
And so we can see that that's not going to be corrected in any time soon, even if we're increasing residency spots, training international medical graduates, because if, let's say, every physician has about 2,000 patients, which is a healthy practice, and some would consider that bigger, to get to 2 million people is a lot. And with how the government allows people into the province, that requirement is only increasing, and the number of people we know are projecting, it's going to be even more as the years go by.
For sure, yeah. There's like no end in sight. Tell us about your roles as a hospital and community-based pediatrician and as an assistant professor at U of T.
Okay, so right now I work for the Scarborough Health Network and I'm one of the community pediatricians. Scarborough is one of the primary affiliate sites for the University of Toronto or Temerty Faculty School of Medicine. So I'm in that as an assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics. And so as a pediatrician, my role is, there's multiple roles. So in a given day when I'm on call at the hospital, so I work in a hospital setting, I will attend deliveries that are high risk. I will go to the emergency room where kids are unwell and help take care of them if they potentially need admission to the hospital. I work, also cover the neonatal intensive care unit. So that's a land of the little ones where all the premature infants are based for their time while they're critically ill. And then the fourth role would be the pediatric ward, so where kids get admitted. So those are the 4 areas that we're rotating on a given day when I'm on call. And then in addition to that, we have a clinic, a pediatric clinic in the hospital, where once a week, again, it's called the outpatient setting, where we see patients who are referred by family doctors, need follow-up after being seen in emergency, and that's the outpatient setting. So that's my role day-to-day as a pediatrician. And in addition to that, I work about once a month in an office setting where I see consults, so that's usually referrals from family doctors.
Okay.
I previously, for 5 years, had a practice of my own where I was seeing kids right from birth for all their regular checkups,
Primary care.
doing all the primary care. And then, but yeah, my other roles also include, because of my interest in lifestyle and wellness, I'm on the wellness committee at our hospital, but as also for the Department of Pediatrics through Sick Kids. We have wellness committees that look at the wellness of our physicians and our healthcare providers, seeing what we can do in our work settings to improve. Then also currently right now at U of T, they just ratified a lifestyle medicine interest group. So I was involved with 3 other physicians, helping that get off the ground, helping the medical students get that off the ground. So we're involved there. Previously, the medical school offered a resilience curriculum for medical students. And so I was actively involved as a physician, helping train other physicians in delivering this resilience curriculum. And how we can deliver this in a standardized way for all the medical students. So again, bringing in, always keeping at the center my interests of resilience, promoting physician health, learner wellness, and then finally, I'm also the education lead for one of the 2 education leads for pediatrics for the Scarborough Health Network, which means that all the medical students and residents coming through, I'm actively creating schedules, organizing their schedules, teaching them on a regular basis, meeting with them, providing feedback.
Excellent.
And so interacting with them on learners on a very regular basis. So that gives you some idea of the different roles that I have working as a community pediatrician and with the medical school.
That's amazing. Yeah, you've had so many challenges and hurdles in your life, like, this resilience that you've built up, and now you're able to help the community, because you have to go through challenges on your own to know how to overcome them. And you've obviously shown that you've done that over the years. So obviously you're somebody that people will look to get help and guidance. Let me ask you, Northern Ontario, you are doing locums in Northern Ontario, still doing that?
Yeah, still doing that. So I started doing that in 2014.
Yeah.
2014, yeah. So it's been now about 10 years.
Yeah.
And the impressions, the foundation for working right now in Timmins was laid when I was in residency. So one of the tremendous opportunities that we had in St. John's, Newfoundland, when we had to do rural pediatrics, we would have time to work outside of the city center. Because the land is so wide and the providers are so few, we in our 3rd year we got sent to Goose Bay, Labrador to be the pediatrician, because there is no pediatrician out there. So as a resident, you were put in the role of a staff. Yeah, and so I still remember the obstetrician there. One of my first days, really Polish guy. And with a really deep Polish voice, he looked at me on one of the first days. He said, 27-week mom, pushing, let's go, right? And I just remembered being like in a very like, whoa, this is a real thing. And so anyways, one of the reasons that I continue to do this work is because that time that I had there in Goose Bay, but as well then across Newfoundland, really helped cultivate that skill set. See, when you're out in the rural community, I don't have the closest tertiary care hospital to call, and get all the help I need. You really have to, use your brain. You have people to call, but for a period of time, you may have to be managing that patient yourself, because someone has to fly in to pick up the patient. There's always gaps of hours or even days before you can transport patients. And so it's really there's multiple reasons why I go there, but I learn every time I go up north. It's a way of just keeping sharp, refreshing skills, and just really learning when I'm up there.
Yeah, you're hands-on.
You're more hands-on, right? The second reason is that the allied health professionals there, the nursing, they're so awesome. They are really competent. They're excellent, and we've developed such a good working relationship. They really are very talented providers that I enjoy working with, and are have an opportunity to learn from them as well. and exchange ideas. Timmins, I love nature, as you know, and so it gives me a time to really be more secluded. So it's a chance for me to rejuvenate, relax, and also have some nature time that's more, focused. So I love going for that. And then finally, marginalized populations in Timmins. You have a large Mennonite population. You have a large First Nations population, and so people are coming. It's the district center for miles and miles, away. For example, they're the main hospital sometimes for the catchment of like 4 or 5 hours radius. And so you get calls from all small towns all over the place. And it's a real amazing opportunity to help marginalized populations that I wouldn't otherwise get to do in bigger cities. And so I really feel like I can make a contribution because there's a need. It's really rewarding in that way.
Sounds like you have to work very hard. When you get a call, do you have to go out to that location, those little...
No, they usually come to where we are.
They come
right?
where you
so
are.
they are the center, like in Toronto, Sick Kids is where everyone goes to.
Right.
Out there, Timmins is where everyone goes to.
Okay. Very good. Well, you know what, Dr. Patel, that's a great journey you've had up until now. But let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine.
Sure.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Plant-Based Wellness Forum. I'm here with Dr. Rikin Patel. Rikin, how's it going so far?
Good. Everything's going great.
You're giving us a lot of great information, and it's so beautiful to see the journey that you've had up until being a physician and all the things you're involved with. Right now, we're going to talk about your craft. Let's talk about lifestyle medicine and plant-based nutrition.
Okay.
First question is, I understand you adopted a plant-based lifestyle, I think 15 years ago. What made you do that? What made you adopt a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so growing up, I will say I was on the standard American-Canadian diet. And although my mom, she'd always been a vegetarian, she, never pressured us. And, my mom and dad had different dietary habits. So we basically I grew up eating meat, all types of food.
Yeah.
And I still remember myself, if I look back, when I look back now at what I was eating, I would have, as a doctor now talking to my own parents, I tell my parents, like, what were you guys thinking, right? And so I used to be, fast food was there. My dad had a pharmacy full of candy and I was just always in the candy, had tons of cavities and, going to lunch during school, had your typical turkey sandwich, cookies, flaky pastry, juice.
Typical North American diet.
Kool-Aid, juice jammers, yogurt, fruit yogurt. And that was pretty much, my diet. And then I remember when I was 10, I spent a summer with my uncle in Chicago. And it really, he was a vegetarian and he had a really grounded practice. He was really grounded in his spiritual practice and just spending so much time with him, going to the temple that he would go to. I was really inspired to phase a certain type of meat out of my diet. So that's when kind of the journey started. Then from that point on, when I was 10, I only was eating chicken. And then that was all the way until I was throughout university. And then when I got to the UK, I think I mentioned, I met a group of friends that really inspired me with their practice of yoga and meditation and the wisdom texts they were studying. It's things that I had even been exposed to when I was younger, but I had met a group of people that really inspired me. And one of the cultural and lifestyle practices to improve the practice of meditation is having a compassionate diet. So no meat. And so I was really inspired at that time to take it on. And so that was now coming up to 20 years ago. And I haven't looked back. I will say that I started out as a vegetarian, and then that I always, that has an evolution. And so over time, learning more about the science of whole food plant-based nutrition, Then, in the last like 5-6 years, and I've also focused more on having no animal protein at all, trying to minimize oil intake and really focusing on the whole foods. So again, that has been a transition over time.
So that transition started not necessarily for health reasons, but more for meditation and...
Yeah, so I really was drawn to doing it for moral and ethical reasons. And that was, just the idea of the principle of nonviolence, the compassion for all living beings. Those were really the principles. And then to improve my own, as a way to calm my own mind, right? And so those were the reasons that really helped make the transition at that time.
So when people hear about a plant-based diet, what exactly does that mean? Like, to what extent, should people be doing a plant-based diet? If they can't give up meat completely, what do you think is necessary to have the health benefits at least?
Yeah, so I, generally when I'm with patients who have the typical standard diets, my first principle is always adding more fiber to the diet. So really, the first place we start is just adding more fruits, vegetables, whole grains to our diets. And so it doesn't always necessarily have to be right away about eliminating and restricting. I like to take the displacing approach, right? So giving, thinking about substitutes, right? And so again, I always see when I use the term plant-based, I see it as like a spectrum, right? And I think it needs to be seen as a spectrum because people are at different points in their journey, and we need to respect where people are on their journey because they do it for different reasons. Like people who are doing it for health reasons, some people are doing it for spiritual, religious reasons, some people who are doing it for compassion for animals, right? The environment, right? So again, we have different reasons, and people are at different points in their journey. But as a starting off point, I think looking at the Canada Food Guidelines really gives us some good science to help support the reasons why we're doing it, let's say specifically for our health. And we do a lot to improve our health now if we can reduce our animal protein consumption. So that includes both dairy and meat.
And eggs as well.
Sorry?
And eggs as well, right?
Yeah, eggs as well.
Yeah.
So I think starting there just by reducing, and once we learn more about how it increases our risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, when we learn these things, and when people get impacted by these chronic diseases that are ever more becoming more prevalent, then I think that's, to me, a great starting point to get people to reconsider, what they're eating. But again, there's a wide range. There's vegetarians that are still eating eggs and have milk in their diet. There are vegetarians who don't have those in their diet. And then, it goes all the way down to, then there's vegan where there's no animal protein. And then, again, whole food plant-based where there's no animal protein, but also we're looking at maximizing whole foods, and we are trying to reduce our oil consumption as well.
Right.
So again, there's so many different types of diet. The Mediterranean diet also looks similar to a plant-based diet, except there's fish in the diet.
I like the way how you said, just to substitute, make substitutions. Doesn't have to be an all or none.
Yeah, it's definitely not an all or nothing phenomenon. And I never make it to be that way. It's a journey. I always use my example of transitioning. It was done over 10, 15 years, right? And even to this day, I still tell families that my diet's also being refined and evolved. So
it's a constant evolution.
Yeah.
So we can talk about the health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet in a bit, but you mentioned compassion. What are your views on veganism, animal welfare, and also the environmental effects of industrialized animal farming?
Yeah. This is a really important topic because I think our world is overall becoming more conscious of our planet, the environment, you know, handing over, leaving the planet in a better place than we found it. There's also more awareness of animals, factory farming, ethical uses for, you know, reasons for why, you know, what animals are being used for, everything from like food to clothes. And so there's a wide, you know, ranges for how animals are, you know, being, you could say, exploited in society today. And so all this awareness has really brought about a huge, you know, explosion, you could say, in people exploring diets without meat,
Right.
specifically.
And
as
we
a
don't
compassion for
need
animals.
meat to have a healthy life, right? That's the thing a lot of people
Yeah.
need to understand is they think, okay, if I don't have meat, I'll be unhealthy. What's your view on that?
So I guess the first principle to share is that most people will talk about meat and their protein source, and so
That's a big topic, yeah.
yeah, it's a big topic, and the first place I always start is that you can get all 9 essential amino acids, which are the building blocks for protein, from plants. So there's no, you know, it was kind of like a older knowledge where you had to combine different plant foods to get all your protein requirements. No, plants have all 9 essential amino acids, and in fact, that's where animals get them from, is by eating plants.
Exactly.
right?
Animals are the middleman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that first, you know, that first piece is that when we're looking at the quality of protein, there is no difference, right? And then it really just becomes, how do we make protein from plants more digestible? But you can fully live a healthier life, and you can thrive. You know, now we see the highest competitive athletes on whole food plant-based diets, and we're not talking about just anyone. We're talking about the people who are best in their, you know, in their
Exactly.
fields, right? Really exemplified in the documentary The Game Changers, which was excellent and really shed light on the power of a plant-based diet to improve our performance, right? And so, yeah, and then with respect to health, in fact, the research that's out there is the opposite. We can actually improve our health. We reduce our risk of heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, by reducing our animal protein intake. And
Cancer as well.
yeah,
Common
cancer
cancers.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cancer as well. So it's a real, there's been a huge surge in the knowledge, but not just the knowledge. The knowledge has actually been there for 20, 30 years, but there's a huge focus on getting the knowledge out into the mainstream
Right.
about how, if you have a chronic disease, you know, we would like to work with you on reversing it, you know, through your diet, and how that can be such a powerful vehicle, and to see food as medicine, not just food as sustenance or food for satisfaction, but food actually as medicine.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of people think that, you know, usually modern medicine says you can't reverse certain chronic diseases. So when they hear the word reversal, they're like, well, is this possible? Can it be true? But when you have people like yourself who are influential in the medical community, who are bringing this message across to our viewers and also to your own colleagues, I think that's really important, like you said, to spread the message about the magic, the power that a plant-based diet can do for your health. Switching the subject here, you're a certified yoga instructor. You've been teaching Shaolin Kung Fu for over 30 years. What is Shaolin Kung Fu? You mentioned it before. And what are the principles that it's founded on? And how do these practices complement your medical career?
Well, thanks for the question. You've definitely done a lot of research into some of my background, but no, thanks for bringing this up. Two really important aspects of my life. So, Kung Fu, I started when I was 7 years old. It's a Chinese martial art, has its origins go as far as back as 4,000 years in China. And, you know, in the years and years ago when there were Chinese dynasties, the monks were trained in Kung Fu to protect the dynasties. But what this word means, it's you know, I love looking at the etymology of words, but Kung means skillful work or hard training. And Fu means spending time.
Okay.
So the literal definition of Kung Fu is spending time doing skillful work or hard training. This is what it means. And so, yeah, for me, it's had such a huge impact on my life. There, some of the qualities that come to mind when I think about what I've gained through the practice of Kung Fu, because most people think of it as like a combative art, and definitely that physical aspect is there, but there's a whole culture and lifestyle to martial arts. And my teacher, he passed away in 2005. I remember one of my friends who was speaking at his memorial, was quoting my teacher, and my teacher had told him at that time, he says, being a good person is more important than being a good martial artist. And so again, it just emphasized the point, because in martial arts, but specifically Kung Fu, there's a strong emphasis placed on respect for our students, respect for our teachers, respect for ourselves. There's great emphasis put on hard work and discipline, right? Refining the craft and practice, right? You have to be patient, right? To develop your skills. There's an aspect of humility to come to a teacher and say, okay, I'm here to learn, right? And I think all of these character qualities, again, I feel like are at the foundation of what Kung Fu has to offer, that really supersedes all of the martial aspect. Again, that's provided me a great template for me to maintain my physical health. I still have fun doing it, but it's really the life skills and the character that's been built as a result that I've learned so much from having exemplary teachers who have not just shown in their words, but shown by their actions. And that's really at the heart of Kung Fu, because at the beginning of every class, we offer our respects to our teachers and the masters that have come before. And it's all under the assumption that there's a lineage by which student-teacher, teacher-student passes down the information. And so that really requires a whole mindset to cultivate, that we come here to learn, but also with the responsibility to pass it on.
So 4,000 years of history. I'm familiar with, I do follow a little bit of Shaolin Kung Fu, Shi Hang Yi. Have you heard of him? He's the master at the Shaolin Temple in Germany.
Okay.
And obviously I followed him, and I know there's some other temples, I think one in LA.
Yeah.
Do you know about that? Is there any here in Canada?
So I was really fortunate that over the last 5 years, I have been training with a Shaolin monk in Toronto.
He's on your team, isn't he?
Shifu Wanjing, yes, he's also on our team. And a 34th generation Shaolin monk, really incredible person.
So his whole lineage is Shaolin monks? His whole lineage, his parents, grandparents?
But in China, actually, he started learning Kung Fu from his father. And that's how a lot of, in China, again, it's passed on within families.
Okay.
So father will pass it on to the son, and again, there's that type of lineage, but his father passed on everything he had. Him and his brother, it's amazing, they were pretty much chosen by the Shaolin Temple amongst their whole province. And so they're extremely skilled. He spent 12 or 13 years in the Shaolin Temple, and and then he moved to the States. His brother's in LA. He came to Toronto, and I first met him in 2014 when he came to our school in Waterloo. And fortunately, in 2019, really had the inspiration to start training regularly with him, and has really taken what I've known to a new level. As an example, not just in terms of his skill, but also the way of life he lives and the.
Well, they have more of a ascetic type of lifestyle, right? Where they live more simply.
It's simpler, yes.
And a lot of it is based on, they're called warrior monks, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that warrior monk mentality.
Yeah. So he's a Shaolin warrior monk.
Yeah.
And he's impacted a lot of people, but yeah, overall, like I can say that this practice of Kung Fu, also the practice of yoga, taking on the lifestyle that yoga has to offer, becoming a teacher, that was really there to be able to share more. Right now, teaching yoga in the university setting with university students, but also wanting to bring it to more into the healthcare arena, because most people know about yoga and most people have heard of it, maybe have dabbled in it, but there's a whole lifestyle and culture that I feel has even more to offer than just the external movements. And so in both realms of trying to one, practice, but also try to share what is more than kind of just meets the eye that we see on TV.
How did switching to a plant-based diet enhance your yoga and meditation practice?
I really do believe in the saying now more so, you are what you eat. And we know that animals go through such difficulty and pain in the when they're taken to be food.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really noticed very quickly when I stopped eating meat back in 2005 is that I was less reactive, I was less impulsive, but specifically when I say less reactive, I was able to be more patient and I was less angry, just very simply. And I just was really surprised in myself how quickly that happened. I didn't really change much, else in my life except maybe just starting a very short meditation practice. But I really felt it was because I was really changing what I was putting in my mouth. And I could really personally feel that difference of how it was affecting my mind. And so, yeah, just to kind of share, the whole reason why those that are practicing yoga make this lifestyle choice is to, one, calm their mind, to have more positive and compassionate thoughts. And I can really say that it made a huge difference for me. So again, that's how it impacted my practice.
I understand, that makes sense. And plus, with animal farming, the industrialized animal farming, you have the stress hormones, right? The animals go through stress. And I think also from a soul perspective, when you know that you're not eating dead animal flesh, I think you have a cleaner soul, you're more at peace, and you're connecting with the whole world, the whole universe.
Yeah.
Because we're not separate from the universe, we're just part of life. We are life. And so I think if people can maybe make that distinction, I think, like you said, you'll just feel a lot better, more calm, more at ease, and just accepting the way it is.
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment you're making on the connectedness of all of us, plants, animals, as being all connected. Because I think the more we can focus on that connectedness, that it really helps break down barriers and helps bring about more thoughtfulness in our choices and compassion.
Yeah, I mean, that applies even to humans. When you have the wars going on, I think if there's a respect for all type of life, then you're not going to discriminate against somebody who's a different ethnicity or a different religion. The problem is we create a barrier and say, okay, these people are, people that we can respect and love, and then these people, and I call animals people as well, they have personalities. Yeah. These people, well, they're okay for us to abuse. And so I think it's just a matter of becoming more enlightened and understanding. We're not more entitled to things. We're just, part of every form of life that there is. We just happen to have a higher level of consciousness, so we can discern these things.
Yeah, and that discernment, I agree with you, should be used to make decisions for the welfare of others.
Yeah, excellent. You're not only a pediatrician, you're also a lifestyle medicine physician. Can you explain what lifestyle medicine is compared to traditional medicine, and why is it important in pediatrics?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think it's really always fun to go back to what lifestyle medicine is. So lifestyle medicine is focusing on 6 pillars that provide not only like interventions for prevention, but also for treatment of chronic disease. But really, they should be seen as therapeutic interventions. It can be there to reverse chronic disease, but because they're lifestyle interventions, it's there to empower patients, right? And so the key difference, I would say, or one of the key differences between what we'd see in our day-to-day hospitals offices of allopathic medicine is that and lifestyle medicine is the focus on disease reversal. And I think that's a key point, because in day-to-day medicine, there with chronic disease, we use medicine for symptom management. So if you have high sugar, we give you metformin and insulin to keep your sugar control.
Yeah, hypertension, all that
stuff. If you have high cholesterol, we give you a statin, right? So we have medicines, but that's not, in fact, that's putting, that's abating the symptoms and putting the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But lifestyle medicine really goes to look at what is underneath, what's causing the high blood pressure.
Where's the fire
cholesterol.
coming from?
Yeah, and to address that, these 6 pillars of nutrition, focusing on plant-based nutrition, restorative sleep, exercise and movement, avoiding risky substances, stress resilience, how we're dealing with stress, and relationships and connections. These are the 6 pillars and tools that we're using as not just things you do in the background, but as primary interventions for helping people, one, prevent, but also specifically target reversing chronic diseases. And so its importance in pediatrics should be very obvious, because pediatrics, to me, one of the reasons I went into it was it represents the future health of society, right? When kids are young, they're impressionable. They have the ability to adopt, the good lifestyle habits that can set themselves up for good health in the future. So, in fact, we all know that you and I, when we're trying to make changes in our life at this stage, it's much, much harder. Kids can do it much, quicker, especially when we're looking at younger kids, right?
Yeah.
Even below the teenage years, right? If there's good modeling from parents and the environment, the effect can be profound. And so pediatrics makes sense. Why? Because the situation now, Steve, is that in Canada, 44% of Canadians over the age of 20 have 1 out of 10 common chronic disease, right? In 2017, 30% of kids between 5 and 17 years old were classified as overweight. And that was before the pandemic. So you can imagine the situation for sure is
gotten worse.
Worse now. Between the years of 2006 and 2019, there was a 60% increase in type 2 diabetes in children. In the year 2020, 1 out of 4 hospitalizations in children or in people between the ages of 5 and 24 was due to a mental health condition, right? And then finally in 2021, 22% of children have at least one chronic disease. And so when we look at the broader, when we zoom out and look at the state of health, the majority of it now is chronic disease and mental health. And so if we really are looking to and lifestyle medicine, really there's 4 primary aims of lifestyle medicine, which I think is important to know. It not only wants to improve the patient outcomes, there's an opportunity to lower costs of healthcare, which is just ballooning, as we know, right? Through procedures and medicine. The third principle is improving patient satisfaction when they adopt lifestyle principles and reverse, conditions. And then the fourth is also there's an emphasis on clinician satisfaction. And they're actively trying to improve the clinician experience to improve resilience and prevent burnout. And one of the ways they do this is in lifestyle medicine, there's this idea of the group appointment or group education. So you take people with similar conditions and you cluster them together. And instead of the doctor walking into 5 different rooms saying the same thing for someone with hypertension, diabetes, or cholesterol, you put them all in one room. You say you tell them together. It's more efficient on the physician's time, and then there's the opportunity for patients to also learn from each other. So it's a really powerful model that I think will only continue to grow as chronic disease worsens. But we have a huge opportunity in lifestyle medicine to reverse chronic disease and help on a very large scale in a more effective way.
So do you do that right now? Do you have small group sessions when you see the same group of patients in the rooms?
So that'll go back to, I mean, one of the roles that I have in the hospital, I forgot to mention this, was I work in our lifestyle, healthy lifestyle pediatric clinic, and that's focusing on kids with obesity.
Okay.
We have a multidisciplinary team, dietitian, exercise therapist, social worker, physician, and program coordinator. But we do have group education in this program where the social worker, the dietitian get together, they do education, and the exercise therapist just does group exercise therapy. So that, yeah, that concept is there. And for me, because I wanted to expand lifestyle principles being, in Canada or in general, most people think of lifestyle clinics as for those just with obesity. And to me, I wanted to kind of crack that conception. You can use lifestyle principles for so many other conditions, right? And so that's the reason why I started a pediatric lifestyle focused clinic that is completely focused on the pediatric population and looking at a variety of both chronic conditions and diseases that we can use lifestyle interventions to not only prevent but reverse these conditions. And so that's what we're pursuing through our new clinic, Reset Pediatrics.
You opened that in June 2023, right?
Yeah, that was in June of 2023.
So that's what sets it apart from other pediatrics practices, that you're trying to halt and also reverse conditions, chronic conditions.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems to be, at least right now, one of it. There's many clinics that focus on weight management for kids, but we're kind of opening it up to include everything from mental health conditions, ADHD, cardiometabolic conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes, headaches, dysmenorrhea, painful cycles, and behavior issues. That's a big challenge in pediatrics. So again, we're trying to open up the scope, and I guess one of the other ways that the clinic is unique is we have a really great team. Like, we have a large team to rely upon. So we have 2 social workers, we have a plant-focused dietitian, we have a parenting coach, we have a sleep coach, we have a yoga therapist. And so we have this great team because I've come to see that lifestyle, change, it requires, an approach that's multimodal. So we need to be coming at it from different angles, and different team members bring their own unique strengths, right, to change. So in kids, it's, if we were talking about lifestyle change, I'd be talking to you, you'd be able to implement yourself. But one thing to understand that's different with kids and lifestyle changes is that I'm always looking at the child, the teenager, through the medium of their parents, right? So the parents are actively involved in the child's upbringing in life. So I need to also work with the parents. Sometimes the parents need help with their knowledge. Sometimes they need help with their parenting skills. Sometimes they need to know how to manage the environment, right? Sometimes they need support with their mental health. Yeah. So that's why we have a variety of team members to help with this, but we're actively trying to focus these 6 pillars of lifestyle on chronic diseases that patients are coming forward with. There's great reception. We're trying to get the word out there about more people and our clinic. And I think one of the other unique things is to try to stay nimble and to try to increase the accessibility. Our clinic is fully virtual. And so it allows, right now, people for our healthcare team, anywhere in Ontario can access our team. And then for our coaches, really anyone in the world can access our coaches.
So how do they see you? Do they get a referral from their family doctor?
Yeah, I mean, so for myself, it would specifically be a referral. I found that on the website, on our Reset Pediatrics website, or we also have our Instagram, Reset Pediatrics, where people can get a hold of us. It has all our education. So one of the unique things that we're trying to do is that we're also, as you mentioned, we're trying to get families together in groups and educate on topics. Right. So for example, we're educating on good sleep habits. We're educating on raising screen smart children. We're educating on how do we get our children to focus and listen better. We are providing information on healthy plates, good nutrition, how to improve, knowledge about how to improve diets, making better choices, practical ways around that. So I always pair up with our team members, whether it be the dietitian, the sleep coach, the parenting coach, and that gives the opportunity for families, if they're not able to see them one-on-one, they could see them in this group setting and derive a lot of benefits. So yeah, the virtual component, the strong focus on education, I really feel that those are some of our strengths, and our amazing team in our health coach, our parenting coach, our sleep coach, our social workers, our plant-based dietitian, all there, our yoga therapists there to help people in different ways. Because again, these 6 pillars require expertise, and while they may start with me, I'm happy even if families who knew they had specific people they wanted to work with, if they have an established condition or diagnosis, we're happy for them to work with them directly right away.
Is it OHIP covered for people living in Ontario?
So for myself, yes, the referrals coming through their family doctors or pediatricians would be OHIP covered. For our dietitians and for our social workers, they would access them through health insurance. And then for
private insurance.
Yeah, our private health insurance.
Right.
And then for our coaches, that would all be out of pocket. And so if that's not possible, that's why we have the group education, so they can access that, and that would be the group education through OHIP.
So you're a medical doctor, you're a pediatrician, you've learned a lot about Shaolin Kung Fu and motivation and strength and all that stuff, but you're doing lifestyle medicine, plant-based nutrition. What qualifications do you have to be able to teach lifestyle medicine and plant-based nutrition other than what you've read? Have you done any specific courses?
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity to shout out to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, who they're doing great work, established in probably about 2014, and they're the organization right now that are board certifying healthcare providers in lifestyle medicine. So for physicians now, you can go through certain requirements, nutrition education, attending conferences, acquiring knowledge, applying principles with our patients. You have certain requirements. In addition, then you write an exam. And so yes, I've recently board certified in lifestyle medicine by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, which designates me as a specialist in lifestyle medicine. So
that's why you're qualified.
Yeah, so that qualification is there. I'm really happy to have that to round out my knowledge. There's so much to learn. Then there's the nutrition course that I took through the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition at Cornell University. That's a great course to take that's really empowered me with the science behind plant nutrition, how it impacts chronic diseases, and how we can use it as intervention for disease reversal. And so those are the 2 main, bodies, but specifically the College of Lifestyle Medicine.
Yeah.
But there's so many people doing great work. There's the Plantrition Project, where if people are looking for providers in their area, they go to plantrition.com, look for
the directory of individuals.
Directory of providers.
Yeah.
They're also doing tremendous work in the education space. And and then there's pioneers in this field that are have been in the space for many years that we have so much to learn from. Dr. Esselton, Dr. Barnard, Dr. Ornish, that have really paved the way for all of us.
The heroes, just like yourself, you're one of the heroes of lifestyle medicine, plant-based nutrition, especially here in Canada.
Yeah.
And I think it's inspiring for other medical professionals to realize that, obviously this is all science-based, it's not just people's opinion, and it really works, if implemented in the right way. So congratulations on getting your diplomat in ACLM.
Yeah, thank you.
You talked about it before, but there's a high prevalence of chronic disease in Canada. Adults have cancer is number 1 and heart disease is number 2 on the list. What are you seeing in children and teenagers? You mentioned it before, but just to kind of summarize, what are we really seeing right now out in populations?
As I mentioned with some of those statistics, the incidence of obesity is rising tremendously. As we mentioned, that stat of 30% being overweight, and it's definitely higher now since 2017, which then brings so many other cardiometabolic conditions I'm regularly seeing kids with high triglyceride and cholesterol levels, high blood pressure. And so these are conditions that are really growing. Fatty liver, non-hepatic acute fatty liver disease.
Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Non-alcoholic fatty liver
NAFLD.
disease. Yeah, and this is all the result of high BMI and weight. And so, this is leading to, kids who are having then joint issues. They're developing type 2 diabetes, right? And so these are all vastly on the rise. And then in addition to all of these lifestyle conditions, then there's also the rise, as I mentioned through these statistics, the rise in mental health conditions. So anxiety and depression are at its highest levels than we've seen. And that also then is related to the rise in pediatrics of those with eating disorders, right? That's also on the rise. We had a huge wave of that during the pandemic that really flooded the hospitals. But these are, I would say, some of the really main conditions that are, as we mentioned from the statistics, drastically on the rise in pediatrics, where the positive light here is that there's such a huge role for lifestyle medicine to help address and reverse these diseases, because in pediatrics, we don't have to start everyone on medication right away. The natural first step in pediatrics, as most of our family doctors and pediatricians knows, is lifestyle interventions, right? And so we have, in one sense, if we can address it here, we have a longer runway, as I tell parents, to longer runway in terms of time to be able to make changes. But I always tell families that while they think that the changes should be made later in life, in fact, the changes are actually they're more impactful and powerful made younger in life. There's a graph that we generally show. It shows that in the first 20 to 25 years of our life, the strongest impact of developing chronic disease is in the first 20 to 5 years is impacted by dietary influence. So it's this graph that kind of swells and sinks. So it's showing that our dietary choices and influences in the first 20 to 25 years of our life have a bigger impact of developing chronic disease than the next 25 years. It's not mean that we can't make changes later, but that the earlier the better, really. And that small changes make a big difference. And I often tell parents that even if there's a great study in the New England, JAMA, that showed that even if we're taking 3% change of switching from animal protein to plant protein, it reduces all-cause mortality, which is, dying for all reasons, decreases by 10%.
Wow,
so again,
huge.
speaking to that point of small changes making a big difference.
Well, you can see it in children who are overweight or obese, but then what's your view on children that are eating a primarily animal-based diet, and yet you don't see the visible obesity or overweightedness? What do you think is happening to those kids?
Yeah, good question. So we do know now, this is very well established research, but they've now, and the reason why I talk about it to parents as soon as I talk about the food guideline when they're 1 to 2 years old, but kids now, we know they've done autopsies in children, and they've shown by looking at vessels and arteries that fatty streaks develop as young as 3 years old.
Wow, 3 years old.
3 years old. And so by the age of 10, pretty much 100% of children on the standard American Canadian diet have fatty streaks in their arteries, right?
Okay, but they're still thin though. So I see families with their children who you would never know anything's going on. So you're saying there's some underlying
it's starting,
invisible things that you don't realize, right?
Yeah, we don't see. And then by the time they're 20 to 30, that the plaque is already starting to form. So as plaque is forming, the arteries are already starting to narrow. And so that's why heart disease sometimes manifests in their 30s, 40s. And so I often say that heart disease, pediatricians all know now, that is in fact a pediatric condition that starts in our childhood. And so again, for families to know that the choices we're making now about our dietary choices, it's already laying the foundation for chronic disease in the future. So this is something really important that families are usually quite surprised about. They don't realize that things are already starting to happen at the at the age of 3.
And that's why I wanted you to call that out, because it's such an insidious disease. Like you said, you don't see anything at the beginning. You know, you're eating the North American diet, you're eating the fast food, the child is active, so you know they're overall in good health. You don't even think twice about it, but it is brewing underneath, and I think that's a really big thing to call out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dr. Patel, all this stuff sounds so inspiring, but how would a family incorporate a plant-based diet for themselves and their kids? And also, at what age would you recommend that people start with a plant-based diet?
Yeah, great question. So I often, in the office setting, I generally am talking about nutrition pretty much right from after babies are introduced solids. And generally my recommendation is always starting with high fiber foods. But specifically then after the age of 1 year old, a lot of families have question about formula and milk. And that's where I then point towards the Canada Food Guideline, where the 3 major changes that I always highlight to my families is that because now it's a plate method, that half the plate is now fruits and vegetables. There's a huge emphasis on all of us having more fiber in our diet because of the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effect of fiber. The second big change is that they've removed meat as a food group, and now it's just referring to plant protein sources, specifically with more of an emphasis on plant protein sources because of the reduced fat cholesterol and the high level of fiber that you can get from plant protein that's not available in animal protein. And then third big change is that milk has been removed off the guideline and it's being substituted with water. And so again, this naturally brings up the conversation with families that I'm usually, it's okay if their child is not drinking milk after the age of 1. If they wanted a substitute for milk in terms of a beverage, soy milk is definitely the best in terms of its protein content, matching that of cow's milk.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it before that that the cows get the calcium from the plants. So again, why go to the middleman where there's so many issues with dairy, with the plant, with the animal protein, with the cholesterol, with the fat, saturated fat. And I think soy is a great alternative. There's other ones as well, as you know, cashew, almond, oat milk.
Yeah, and generally for kids, one thing to note that our dietitians are really especially pediatric focused dietitians, that I learned from them is that there's a strong emphasis on in the younger years, especially below 2 or even after 2, is specifically soy milk rather than the other nut milks, and it's because of the high protein. So the other nut milks don't have the same protein content, and protein being a very important part of growth and development in the younger years. Kids less than 3 years old, they need a higher percentage of fat content in their diet. They need more protein because of the rate at which they're growing. And so again, soy being the beverage.
So that's your recommendation.
Yeah, it's the recommendation, and something we're really trying to advocate Health Canada to to also emphasize really as soon as after the age of 1, really.
Well, talking about Health Canada and the Canada Food Guide, what are you doing to get this message out to schools? What are you doing for this?
So our clinic is definitely one resource of trying to provide group education to get the word out there. I think going to schools is going to be a real important endeavor in the future to kind of hit the masses, and that will also mean then providing input on how menus and diets can change in schools. So I'm sure the government of Canada and they want to have a child nutrition program,
right?
And so there's being a program that they want to roll out that is hopefully consistent across provinces, but at least in Ontario. Just actually last week, I actually met Chrystia Freeland.
Oh, did you?
Our deputy minister and finance minister, and we're hoping to take that conversation forward about how we can use our resources, but specifically use the science that we have available to us to implement more plant-friendly choices in our menus in schools. So I think that's going to be a really important way to have our government be allies for us, and to use the science in that way. And then third, right now I'm in touch with an organization called Greener by Default, and they're a tremendous organization they're dedicated to helping organizations transition into having more plant-friendly options. So they'll help corporates transition their corporations to more plant-based options. And then they're also helping hospitals. So I'm actively trying to help our hospital at the Scarborough Health Network transition the patient menus to have more plant options. And again, starting small, but seeing the impact. Again, we have a great template in the 12 hospitals in New York that have really set the standard for. They were able to increase the plant options by, I think, about 60-70%. They had 90+% patient satisfaction and saving $500,000 a year in costs. So again, we have a great model to follow of improved satisfaction, saving costs, and eventually for us to show the health benefits and impact. So again, this is a great organization that I recommend everyone to reach out to if they're looking to learn how to transition, because
what's it called again?
Greener by Default.
Greener by Default.
And so they're
it's available for any organization?
Yeah, and they're looking to help plant-based options be the default option.
See, here in Windsor, we have the highest rate of chronic disease in all of Ontario. We have the highest obesity, highest cardiovascular disease, and highest cancer rates.
Wow.
And because we're probably influenced so much by the U.S. and the marketing and the advertising, that would be something fantastic that maybe we can help to implement in places like Windsor, Essex County.
Yeah. No, we're happy to to be a support and bring the resources that are needed and education that's needed to help hopefully promote some change.
Yeah, and just going back to the school's lunch program, I do hope that they follow the Canada Food Guide instead of serving hot dogs and pepperoni pizza and all that stuff. And you're trying to obviously be a vocal source for that, right?
Yeah, no, we really want to be at the table. Again, I also feel like my background in health policy, finance, and economics can also help bridge the knowledge that I have as a physician, as well as the practicality as a policy and economics, to kind of bring those together to hopefully be at the governments, working with the governments to help spur these changes. Where we have so much great science now, and generally policy tends to lag behind the science, but really try to accelerate that.
Well, I mean, you didn't know why you were going into that back in the UK, but now you put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
And you have the complete package, to be able to make a big influence and a big positive change in Canadians' health. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation with respect to what the optimal diet is for long-term health and longevity. Talk about the popular keto diet compared to the one we're talking about today, the plant-based vegan diet. And what's your advice to those who want to follow a keto diet?
Yeah, so generally we don't really recommend the keto diet in a pediatric population. I know it's something that's more popular amongst adults. And for the little that I know about this topic, the keto diet we know will help promote weight loss, and it's been shown to improve like insulin sensitivity. However, the challenge is that when the diet is stopped, we do know from the research the weight comes back,
right,
and that there's an increased cardiovascular risk with these types of diets. So again, generally from my perspective in the pediatric population, it's not often something that I'm talking about. And
so you never see any, sorry to interrupt you never see any young teenagers that are overweight and they say, hey, I've heard about this keto diet, I want to eat bacon and eggs every day, and you don't see that very often?
No, I mean, the question hasn't come up too often. It's definitely something that is, gaining like popularity, but we would, as physicians, we would, there's definitely different types of diet. And while it's not a fad diet, it definitely has some of that, media popularity that's, pushed it out there.
Definitely, yeah.
But there's still a lot of research to be done. But what we do know, we don't know the long-term impacts. What we do know is that there are risks for higher mortality. And again, we do know that usually people are gaining the weight back.
Right, after they stop. So if they continue it for long term, I mean, aren't they predisposed to heart disease, dementia, kidney problems?
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah, so again, and one of the things that's often talked about with this diet is sustainability. It's quite restrictive, right? And
Absolutely.
so it may be something that people could do for a very short-term basis. But for me, what I like about a whole food plant-based diet is that it provides a lot of options,
Right.
a variety, and caters to people's backgrounds or cultures, and to me is much more sustainable.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is the sustainability. You can go on and have all these different types of plant-based options. You can substitute easily from animal-based options and make the same type of thing plant-based. So it's not like you have to eat a completely different diet. It's just substitution and transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're passionate about improving access to healthcare in underserviced communities. What initiatives or projects are you currently involved in to address this issue?
In communities. So I think one of the most important things that I'm trying to do right now is educate physicians and healthcare providers about lifestyle medicine, because I really do feel that if we can hit this very impactful band of society, then it can have a trickle-down effect to
Of course.
Patients. And
Start at the top.
Yeah.
Start at the
So
influencers.
I really feel that one of the things I'm really trying to do more actively, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity of being here today with you, is to really try to expand education awareness, so that education is there. I think also just by trying to improve education, trying to activate organizations like Greener by Default to come into a hospital setting to talk to them to see how we can make changes. I think that will also have downstream effects in the community. So really, for me, starting in the place of where I already exist and trying to educate and create impact there, which will then have kind of an outward effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a couple of things, and then really just talking about, recently I was at the Festival of India, and they had cooking demos, but they're plant-based cooking demos, and so again they came at it with talking about how food is good for our mind and our soul, and I was talking about how food is medicine, is good for our body, and how we can use it as a tool for improving our health.
You were a speaker.
Yeah, I was
at the festival?
I paired up with the
Excellent.
chef, because there's this whole area now growing even in lifestyle medicine called culinary medicine. And culinary medicine is this idea where the healthcare provider gets trained as a chef. And if they're not trained as a chef, then they pair up with a chef. So you combine the knowledge and the science that a healthcare provider has, and you combine it with a chef to make it more practical, and you provide practical takeaways for how patients and families can help practically let it show up, how the science can show up on their plate more effectively.
That's a great idea, because it's easy to just talk about it, but then if you don't know how to put it into practice. Absolutely. So we talked about the state of chronic disease in Canada. How's the medical system handling it? And if you could influence any change to the medical system to not only manage but halt and reverse the diseases, what would these changes be?
So if I had a chance to impact the medical system, because right now we know chronic disease is overwhelming our medical system. All the finances show that, our rates of rise of the prevalence of our disease and incidence is showing that. So we know that it's continuously stressing our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is currently very good at reversing acute problems where you could potentially have, surgery.
Yeah.
And, we have medicines to put things into remission. But for disease reversal or chronic diseases, this is where our healthcare system really struggles. So the first, change that I would like to see is to have all physicians certified in lifestyle medicine. Because again, every single physician, no matter what area they're in, they're dealing with chronic disease in some way or another. So I think having all physicians aware of these 6 pillars and how these 6 pillars can impact both prevention and reversal of chronic disease, I think that would be a huge win for a healthcare system as a whole, trying to really get it at a macro level.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing. I think, then second to that, we really need to advocate to our governments on how what's really challenging the uptake of lifestyle medicine in our healthcare system right now is that we really need to change our remuneration schemes to family doctors. So right now, family doctors are being penalized for practicing lifestyle medicine because they have family healthcare teams, and patients can't go see other doctors. Otherwise, there's a penalty, and there's no real our payment methods for physicians, especially ones that want to do lifestyle medicine, are outdated. There's no recognition, or there's less recognition of treating chronic disease, having group appointments, group therapy, empowering our family physicians who are the base of our healthcare system. And so there really has to be a change in how, from a finance and our remuneration perspective, this really needs to happen for our healthcare system to make a shift, and for lifestyle medicine to come into the mainstream and to have more of a mainstream focus in our healthcare system. This really has to happen. And then, as I mentioned, that if we are trying to adopt more of this idea of like group appointments, group education, it really then will allow us to hit the masses. Because again, then we allow patients to learn in groups. We allow patients to learn from each other in groups. This can have a real powerful effect on changes. Sometimes we know, like I've seen how they work. I'll say something, a patient will push back with some of their challenges. Another patient in the group says, hey, I dealt with it like this, or I dealt with it like this. And, it really helps disarm disarm providers, because, we can help in a certain extent, maybe provide the science, help establish why this is important. But some of the practicalities are coming from families that, look exactly like them and provide solutions. So there's such a powerful way for us to, also have an impact on our wider healthcare system if we're doing this. And then finally, if we're really, I really want to push to see hospitals across Ontario and Canada serving plant-based menus, because, the way I see it now, and I'm telling our hospital administration this, the food we're serving is actually contributing to our chronic disease, and we're actually not reducing, we're actually increasing the business of having people spend longer time in the hospital with the food that we're serving.
Yeah, I mean, people come in for a heart attack, and then they're fed the food that actually brought that heart attack on.
Exactly.
Great information, great advice. What advice would you give to aspiring medical students in Canada?
Yeah, so for new medical students who are on the path, as you know, it's a long journey. It's worth the endeavor for the amount of impact and influence that you can have as a physician. It's really rewarding, so it's definitely worth that journey. For students, I know medical school is a long journey. Getting in can be really tough. So I encourage everyone that's applying anywhere to look to opportunities to pursue medicine that may not be in their province, in their country, to go outside. I think the doors for coming back to your native country is opening, especially here in Canada, with the need for more physicians. So to look to other opportunities. And finally, to all 2B and budding medical students, please look at lifestyle medicine as something to incorporate into your practice. Is the future of medicine. I'm confident about this, and we really, really want all medical students looking at lifestyle medicine, not only for them to improve their own health, but also then as an opportunity to impact so many of our patients in a very practical way, to help not only just prevent conditions, but also reverse chronic diseases. So I would like to see it as regular curriculum in all medical schools and residency programs.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So, Dr. Patel, what are 3 life lessons or pearls of wisdom that have guided you throughout your career that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, so if I'm just giving some lessons and pearls that I took away from, in my journey, I would say that, we've been blessed with a lot. There's being this practice of gratitude that we hear about so much really is powerful, because I really feel it's a seed of abundance. That the times in my life where I have not seen how much I have, it's because I haven't had enough gratitude. So I think we can never over-index on being grateful for what we have in our life. I think all of us, the second, pearl is that all of us are born with a gift and a superpower. And so that we should really spend the time to uncover, work at discovering what that is, and then work even harder to share that gift and that superpower with the world, because every single person's important. Every single person can make a contribution. And we all have inherent value that I want everyone to remember, discover, and share. And then the final pearl of wisdom that I keep with me every day is how there's so many challenges in the world. We really need more compassion in the world. And one of my mentors, my spiritual mentors, Radhanan Swami, he said the greatest act of compassion we can be in this world is to be a good example for others to follow. And that was so powerful for me, because it really spoke to the going on the journey, applying everything for ourselves, doing the work, taking the medicine, whatever it might be, and then having experience ourselves and try to share it with others.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that. When it comes time for you to hang up your stethoscope, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your legacy to be when you look back?
Wow, that's a profound question that I should take more time to think about, but it's a good one. I think, in terms of a legacy, would love to be remembered as the individual that went that extra mile for all the families and people they came into contact with, to support and serve them. That I'm remembered as someone who served with all their heart, and to really try to make a difference, and to hopefully inspire others along the way to go on this journey of self-discovery and service. I can say it is the most exhilarating experience that you can have in your life, and to hopefully inspire some people to come along the journey along the way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Looking ahead, what are your visions and goals for the future, both in your pediatric medical practice and in your personal life?
Yeah, so I guess from a career perspective, we're really working hard right now to share pediatric lifestyle medicine, to get that out there, to pioneer in this field, to help set up, to have an impact at all levels, patients, government, and try to get the word out there about this as a, budding and pioneering field through the clinic, through online, through social media, in every way we can, just really grow Reset Pediatrics, the field of pediatric lifestyle medicine, and grow this as much as it can to try to be one of the, change agents in this area. I think education of lifestyle medicine in general, to all levels of society and healthcare providers is a personal passion of mine that I'm really working at in all facets, and really just trying to share the message of food as medicine, and how we can use food, plant nutrition, to reverse chronic disease, and wanting to see that happen at all levels. But especially just start at the hospitals where everyone comes to improve their health, and for us to be more impactful with our resources and the time that we're spending with our patients.
It's such an admirable mission that you have, not only just to be a pediatrician, but to institute all this positive change for the health and welfare of the pediatric population.
Yeah, and then on a personal level, as you were asking, I'm really excited about looking forward to family life and starting a family. That's something I'm really looking forward to, especially having such an interest in kids. I really always want to be coming back to myself and investing in myself, because I really think that that is the kind of key for me able to extend and provide for others, is coming back to always, rest, recover, reframe, learn for myself, and just continue to grow on this journey of self-discovery, learning more about myself, learning more about humanity, and seeing how we can contribute. But I think for me, the internal endeavor must go of growing within must go alongside the external. Otherwise, it's really easy to get lost in just focusing on the outwards and the external. So really just trying to stay grounded myself along the way. I think that's really important for me personally.
Excellent. It's all about self-improvement, reflecting on yourself.
Yeah.
If you were in an elevator going up to the CN Tower and a passenger recognized you as Dr. Rikin Patel, pediatrician, lifestyle medicine physician, and they asked you, Dr. Patel, how could I live a long, healthy, and happy life while keeping my mental health in check and also having a happy spiritual journey along the way? What would you tell this individual in 58 seconds that you had to go up to the CN Tower?
Only 58 seconds.
Yeah.
So if I had to really compress it, I would say that the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, just briefly tell them what these 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine are. And I would want to know what brings them joy, what brings them purpose, and that we all have a special gift to offer. Discover your purpose, share it with others, but in the process of living our purpose, to really invest in our relationships, because our relationships with friends, with family, they're really at the center of happiness in my life and all of our lives. But at the center of that relationship, make our life beyond ourselves, live a life of service, connected to the divine. That really is the center that informs all our other relationships.
Dr. Patel, what advice would you give to families looking to not only improve their children's health and well-being through lifestyle changes, but also to prevent the early onset of chronic diseases such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity?
Yeah, great question. I want to share a study that was done in 2006 in Belgium. And in the study, they were looking at what are the most important factors to have children eat more fruits and vegetables. And from that study, the number one factor that impacted it wasn't, was the food hidden? Was it paired with another food? The number one factor in having children eat more fruits and vegetables were to the extent that parents were eating fruits and vegetables. So it speaks to this idea of modeling that is so powerful, that is really the base of having our children take on lifestyle habits. I'm always telling families, it's going to be this program that we're here for your child. The more you're able to take it on, it's going to benefit you, but then you're also going to be that positive model for your children. And so this study really speaks to the importance of modeling and doing it doing ourselves, that being the most powerful, influential factor to impact change, especially the younger the children are. And so that's that's one big thing I'm always talking about with families, the importance of simple things that we often forget, the family meal. So family meal, the family meal has been on the decline over the last 3 decades. And we know that based on different ages, the family meal has different effects. So for example, when you're an infant, the family meal promotes more exploration of fruits and vegetables, improves language. As you become a child, the family meal serves as a way for siblings to connect. Siblings have closer relationships. There's more uptake of fruits and vegetables. And we also know that children do better in school. Teenagers have a higher chance of getting A's when they're having more family meals. There's reduced risk of risky behaviors, right? Alcohol, smoking, drugs, and reduce risk of mental health diseases. So again, the family meal, coming back to something simple that oftentimes is very difficult in today's busy world. And finally, time in nature, right? There's so much powerful research right now coming out on the impact of nature and lifestyle. 10 minutes in nature reduces impulsivity, improves focus. 20 minutes of nature now we know reduces stress hormone levels, right? So again, getting out there, it's even shown that even if we're around nature, looking at it through the window, pictures, sounds, all of this also has a a positive benefit. So yeah, I know, I recognize with families that, things are busy, we have less time, but we really need to carve out that time to make plans, to spend time with our families, plan meals, model good food choices. And again, this will also translate into preventing the future chronic disease.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, parents have to lead by example.
Yeah.
They can't ask their children to eat plants and then they're going to be eating burgers or,
Yeah.
chicken wings and all that stuff. So, and obviously being together with your family, you can share and discuss and learn. So absolutely great advice. Dr. Patel, I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to come to Windsor. I hope you enjoyed yourself in the short time that you've been here. And I want to thank you for sharing all the insights that you've provided that are so influential and cutting edge, to your practice. And also to thank you for sharing your untold story. Because not only will you influence medical professionals and colleagues, but also parents that are raising their children, but also aspiring students and medical students, as we said before, to follow an example that you're taking, not just to settle for the basic, but to reach out and really want to help, halt and also reverse diseases, because it's an epidemic. And I really admire you. I want to thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks
for
a lot,
coming here,
Steve, for
all
having
the
me.
information.
I really, I genuinely appreciate the opportunity and just really commend you for all the work that you're doing. And, I know that this is a start of a long time friendship and hopefully working more together in the future as we, look to, make the world a better place around us. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you're doing and, want to support you in any way.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all the success to achieve all your goals and dreams and what you're planning to do.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be sure to keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank our viewers from the Plant-Based Wellness Forum for tuning in to the podcast here with Dr. Rikin Patel. I hope that you've been inspired not only by his medical practice as a pediatrician, but also his untold story. And it's very fortunate that we had Dr. Patel here, and we look forward to him achieving all his goals and dreams, as I mentioned, and influencing parents to help their children to be the happiest, healthiest they can be, to have a beautiful life that they can enjoy without chronic disease. So thank you very much, viewers, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.